You know what I hold in my hand? Spring intel. Some schools out there, some programs out there have started spring, and so we're starting to get a little feedback and we're starting to gather some intel. For example, talking to some folks around Oklahoma. And I am very interested, as is pretty much everyone else watching the show that traffics in such things, about what this whole quarterback offensive coordinator infusion is going to consist of. What's it going to look like? So for those of you out there who are just sort of diving in, or maybe you're not diving in, maybe you're dipping your toe back in to check on updates throughout spring on different programs, John Mateer is a transfer quarterback here. So he comes in, he's a multi-year starter, so he's not some rookie, he's not a former five-star freshman that didn't play and now he's got to break in with Oklahoma. He's got experience at Washington State. One of the little pieces of almond from the bar I just ate flew out of my mouth there. I hope we caught that. So we got him, and we've also got his offensive coordinator, old Coach Arbuckle, coming along with him. So naturally you wonder, well, Oklahoma was kind of low-key terrible last year. What changes will we see? Well, it will not surprise you probably a whole heck of a lot to find out the early returns are good here. Now, I never take that for granted. Oklahoma's got to hit on this. It's not optional. It's not an either or. Oklahoma flat out has to have hit on this quarterback acquisition. Now, they feel like they did. There's a lot of brimming confidence there. You don't have to learn a new system because the quarterback comes along with his offensive coordinator. That's what has sold them on the idea that, hey, we can turn this thing around pretty quickly. Also, you're going to pair that with probably what is a ready-made top 20, top 15 caliber defense. But also, remember this time last year, just to give you an idea of how solid the folks at Oklahoma are, the feedback we were getting from there was not great. And I don't know if you remember this, but I went on the show, took a fair amount of criticism for this, because a lot of folks wanted to sell you on the idea that Jackson Arnold, this was just going to be his coming out party this year. And he flat out had a not so great spring last year. He was turnover prone. That offense was turnover prone. Now, magically, Preview Magazine culture suggests, oh, don't worry, it's just because it's spring. What? Well, he was turnover prone in the bowl game. Yeah, but that's just one game. Okay, but he was turnover prone throughout spring. Yeah, but it'll all get cleaned up, whatever the world that means, cleaned up. It'll all get cleaned up by the time the season starts. And all I did, and poor me, I wish more people would have felt sorry for me after this, all I did was I sat here and said, might we have a little bit of a situation here? Might we have a little bit of a red flag? Nope, just toss that take out on the street. Well, It knocked on the door several times. It got tossed out on the street in the spring, but then come fall, they were a very turnover-prone team. And I'm telling you that not to pat myself on the back, actually, partly to pat myself on the back, but mostly to remind you our sources at Oklahoma are good. So they'll tell you when it's not good, and in this case, they'll tell you when it is good. But the other thing that they have got to work on, the other thing I know they've emphasized, is just team speed. Just get faster. Don't even care what position group it is. Get faster. And it would not shock me if they, like many others out there, looked and said, you know, we could use one more experienced offensive lineman in the portal. Good luck, because that is a very, very, very rabid market. There is not enough supply out there to provide for all the demand that there is. Florida. You've been keeping track of this? I know Florida fans have. I know rivals of Florida fans have. But DJ Lagway is, one of the poster children, I guess, for this upcoming season. He was a guy that led a big second-half turnaround for Florida last year. He figures to be one of the key names in the landscape of the quarterback picture this fall. But here's the problem. If he doesn't play, then that can't come to fruition. What are you talking about? Are you fear-mongering? No, but I am telling you he hasn't thrown, at least publicly, at least while any eyeballs that are willing to share such details have been on him this spring. Billy Napier, for his part, hey, quick timeout. Check and see if you're subscribed to the channel. If you're not, make sure you do. It's free. It doesn't obligate you or sign you up for anything. It just helps us keep the channel free. All right, back to the show. The current head coach at Florida, by the way. If you stopped watching after week 4 last year, you would have thought he'd long been gone. No, he did not get fired. He's still there. He led a second half resurgence, and now quarterback DJ Lagway comes back, but he hasn't really been throwing, and everyone's up in arms. What's he doing just handing off in practice? Are they being just cautious? Are we screwed? Is it somewhere in between? Well, Director Colin has arranged for us to have some sound from Billy Napier. He's not on the show tonight, but some sound nonetheless. Here is the head coach at Florida on the current status of DJ Lagway.
I think our intentions here are to be very smart. I do think he'll be limited in throwing activities, but he'll participate in all practices otherwise. And we've done a lot of homework here relative to the things that he went through as a player. I mean, he was an absolute warrior and a great competitor that showed toughness. And we've consulted with quite a few experts here from a UFL, from a national perspective, as we do with a lot of our players, in terms of second opinion. So I think in general, he'll be able to do quite a bit, but there will be some limitations.
Now listen. Once upon a time, they told Stone Cold to stop wrestling. He went and got a second opinion and had several more very, very impactful years tacked on to the end of his career, although it was still cut short. Second opinions are not normally something you're seeking unless you get bad news on the first opinion. This is baseless speculation on my part because I have no further information on this. Now, of course, when we take the Speaker Series tour to Gainesville this year, which we will inevitably do, we'll sit right down with Billy Napier. He'll come on the show, and I'm sure he'll share all the intimate details that aren't protected by HIPAA, of course, or HIPPO, the masculine version of HIPAA, because DJ Lagway is male. Again, don't question me on this. I don't need to teach everyone grammar. That just is the way it is. But short of Billy Napier just spilling his guts on the show, that may be all we get. And so we're left to wonder, is DJ Lagway okay? We don't know. Once upon a time, Meemaw taught me one of the most valuable things you can ever say, Joshua, when they put a microphone in front of you and the camera is live, is just know when to say you don't know. So I am here to tell you, even in a segment that we fashion as being about intel and whispers and scoop, on this particular front, I don't know. But I do want you to know, if you're listening on podcast, that we're looking at their schedule right now, Florida's, this fall, and notice that, yes, they start week one just like everyone else, but they play 1-2 games out of conference. Then they have LSU. Then they have another game. Then they have a bye. Texas is their second conference game. It's not until week 6. So, I don't know, maybe DJ Lagway is good to go. Maybe we're just getting punked. However, there is at least the outside shot that he's not ready to go. And if he's not, maybe he'll be ready to go by week 6. Because what are we trying to do there? We're trying to win the conference. We're trying to be in the conference championship race. And so if he's not ready to go by Long Island, no, it's not a trip they're taking. That is Florida's literal week 1 opponent. If he's not ready by Long Island, history indicates Florida may still be okay against Long Island. I'm not sure if they'd be okay against LSU and Miami, but I want to get him ready as quickly as possible, and it's not the end of the world if he's not ready to go just right out of the gate. It could be much ado or much to do about nothing. Never got the proper phrasing on that. I think it's still heavily debated. What about Alabama? Let's get this out of the way. Let's talk about the quarterback situation. There's a lot of debate right now. I'm not sure why. There's a lot of debate around Alabama circles and beyond about who the starting quarterback will be there. Hey, not a big deal. It's not the first time a major program has had as the main talking point who's going to start at quarterback. I said a couple of weeks ago, I thought it was Ty Simpson's job to lose, which I still think I'm right about. Some out there recklessly took that to mean that I was calling for Ty Simpson to win the job. I wasn't calling for Ty Simpson to do anything other than be the favorite at the moment I made the statement. I still think he's the favorite to win the job. So this is not something FanDuel has odds on, although I'm speaking in those terms. Here's all I'm saying. All I'm saying is nobody's right now. There is a layer of thinking out there shared by many that Keelan Russell, 5-star true freshman, Elite 11 MVP, I think, he's going to come in and he's going to end up taking that job. If he does, it wouldn't be the biggest shock in the world. It'd be a mild surprise. It wouldn't be the biggest shock in the world because he's going to end up being a stud one day. But here's my thinking on that. as is the case with virtually every true freshman at quarterback, I'm going to make them prove me wrong by winning the job. It's no disrespect to them. It's respect to how hard it is to start at quarterback in major college football for anybody, much less someone who is playing college football for the first time. I don't care if you're an early enrollee. Yeah, that gives you a better shot, but everyone early enrolls now. I don't care if you trained under some of the best, because pretty much everyone who's going to have that fifth star attached to their name has been conditioned to be a big-time quarterback for years out of high school, and they all trained with the very best. So, yes, statistically, you have a better shot. I'm still going to make you prove me wrong by winning the job. So if Keelan Russell does that, then that's wonderful. But the follow-up is, if we had Kalen DeBoer on the show, which I'm sure we will on that front at some point this spring as well, and we were to lie detector him, we just polygraphed him, I'd wonder a couple of things. Why did his legal representation allow this? But we're going to roll with it. Secondly, let's just ask him, do you even have a really, really, really good idea who's going to win the job this fall? He'd probably have a good idea. He doesn't know. He doesn't know. That's why they're still repping and they're still practicing. But I will say this, I said this many times about quarterback battles. Like I've seen a lot of people trying to say, well, this could be this year's version of Graham Mertz, DJ Lagway. Your general point's taken. Now, Lagway starting last year because Mertz got hurt. I think what you're indicating when you say that is maybe Ty Simpson is the starter to begin the year, but then eventually Keelan Russell's just too good to keep on the bench. He's too good to keep in that number 2 role. You could be right. Wouldn't shock me. You could be right. Because what I've said for a long time about quarterback battles is everyone looks at it as it's either the backup's ready by week 1 or else we look to the next year. Well, there's this world where Keelan Russell is not ready to start by Florida State, but he is ready to start by, let's say LSU. Granted, that'd be a tough first start for a true freshman, but I was just looking where Bama's second bye is. It's another 2-bye year. Every team's got 2 byes. And so that bakes in 2 possibilities where you got 2 weeks to get your new starter ready. I don't know who's going to start at quarterback. I think it's going to be Ty Simpson, but what I'm trying to say is they don't know either. They may have varying degrees of ideas, but they don't know either. But what I will tell you is a couple of bits of feedback from Alabama beyond that. Number 1, I think there was about as much of a program reset as you can get after last season. I think last season will end up being such a valuable teaching point for Alabama. From Kalen DeBoer's perspective, from a nutrition perspective, from a strength and conditioning perspective, from a sports psychology perspective, everything that is encompassed in what a college football program is now gets to look at 2024 and say, do you ever want that result again? If your answer is no, here's how it's going to have to be. And if you're comfortable with that result again, you don't belong here anyway. I think in many cases, that winter conditioning program and what has happened since last year to this year was built to push everyone towards the edge. And whoever falls off, and you're not supposed to be here, and that's okay. In the short term, it may suck, but in the long term, we'll backfill with someone who is built to be here. But in the long term, you hope you have a product put on the field for spring that gets a lot of good work done. You learn a lot about him, but you just hope that team has that edge to it come fall that it lacked at times last year. I think they killed it with their true freshman class. And I think Lotzier Brooks, just if you want to start circling names, old number 17 down there, I think that's a name to watch. Bama 24/7, by the way. Scarborough and the guys over there doing a really good job covering that team. LSU, I'm looking at offensive tackle. I think many of the fans down there are looking at offensive tackle. But you know what else I'm looking at is their downfield passing games. Just fascinating to look into. If you go back to last year, in fact, I had to write it down. So if you go back to last year, LSU was top 30 in explosive plays. Normally, when you have that on your resume, then that means you were really good at pushing the ball downfield. They weren't. Garrett Nussmeier averaged 7.7 yards per completion. So they had a lot of yards after catch. They stretched the field that way, but they didn't push the ball down the field in the air, and they're very hopeful that they can greatly improve on that. Chris Hilton came back towards the latter portion of last year. If you get a healthy year out of him, he's a guy. Aaron Anderson's back, Nick Anderson, the OU transfer. If you have him healthy, and Barry and Brown, they have the guys in that room, I think, to where that can be a bigger factor. You got to have quarterbacks step up and do that. they've got one of the surest commodities there, or one of the most proven commodities there in Garrett Nussmeier. But also, you're trying to gauge at the offensive tackle position whether you'll be protected and whether you've got enough time to do that. That's what spring's for. That's what God invented spring for. We're trying to figure that stuff out. We don't have to have all the questions answered this time of year. We're trying to get the questions. Obviously, many programs have an open spring. So anytime we start to get into spring, it's kind of like fall camp. Anytime we have the first few fall practices, we try and get as much intel as we can give you, but a lot of it, frankly, a lot of the conversations that I would have with a coach right now would be, we've gotten out there in shorts. I mean, we're still in acclimation period. We haven't really seen what we want to see this spring. Translation, you get a lot better feedback in the coming weeks. It's the same way in fall as it is right now. But any intel is good intel.